Are you tired of feeling run down and exhausted? In our fast-paced world, we're often surrounded by toxins that impact our well-being. I provide holistic solutions designed to detoxify your body and environment. With cutting-edge AO voice scan technology, we identify the root causes of your discomfort or dis-ease, making personalized healing easier than ever. Start your transformative journey towards a healthier, toxin-free life, because at White Sands Self-Care, your well-being is our priority.
Most people aren't broken. They're just dysregulated. Chronic stress, pain, anxiety, and burnout aren't mindset failures. They're nervous systems stuck in survival. I'm Leland Holgate, combat veteran and neuroscientist, and I created the Welcome Home method to help people rewire their nervous systems with breath. To go deeper, visit thewillfulwarrior.com.
Chris Cianciulli has spent his career understanding what drives people and creating systems that help them achieve it. With a background in exercise science, he has trained professional athletes, executives, and music industry celebrities, owned a gym and 2 personal training studios, founded a networking organization, and authored 3 books. Today, he leads My Personal Network, or MPN, an online accountability program for independent professionals built on weekly structure, daily disciplines, and a peer group that holds members to their own standard.
Well, welcome everybody back to another Mindful Monday. And today's guest is someone who truly lives what he teaches. Chris Cianciulli has built an extraordinary career helping people recognize that they already possess the answers they're searching for. They simply need the right structure, accountability, and consistent action to unlock their full potential. Chris is a leadership expert, entrepreneur, author, and founder of My Personal Network, or MPN, a powerful accountability community that I am proud to be a part of, and through that network builder program that he has designed for us. So through MPN, Chris has helped countless professionals stop leaving success to chance and start creating results with intention. From training professional athletes and celebrities to building multiple successful businesses and authoring transformational books, Chris brings a wealth of wisdom and practical strategies to everything he does. So if you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure on how to turn your potential into meaningful progress, this conversation is definitely going to give you some clarity and the structure that you need. So Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here and have just another one of our conversations.
Yeah, that intro doesn't even really do it justice, because you have done so many things that have all led up to, the structure and the stuff that you built with MPN. Do you want to give us a little bit of that, or where you want to start? I know you've done the gyms, but tell us in your own words kind of how that journey started, or where you felt all that started coming together for you.
Sure. Got into exercise or fitness at a young age, like many people who got into the gym around the time that I did. Had inspiration from great characters such as He-Man, the Incredible Hulk, really those action figures, and wanting to achieve the muscles and the body of action figures, and started working out in 4th or 5th grade, got my first weight set. And I had 2 loves around that time. One was working out or getting into exercise, and the other was theater or being on stage performing. So I found myself involved in both areas at a young age, to be in community theater and work out at home. And then as soon as I was old enough or allowed to join a gym, around 14 years old, joined my first gym. And from that, I was hooked, and I started to learn about structure and discipline and took to it.
Wow, that's incredible. So, and I didn't realize that it started really as early as 4 and 5 that you had that. That's pretty incredible. I know I myself, I did some of the working out things and stuff, but it was definitely later in the teens when you get more worried about, appearances, what you think or whatever. Was there another reason, or I mean, what drove you to be in the gym and stuff so much?
Uh, well, I was at a young age, I knew I was never going to be tall because growth, the greatest challenge for me was to grow vertically.
Hmm.
So, and I was a skinny kid, fast metabolism. So working out was something that I really liked the way it made me feel. Just it built confidence from an early age. And you said 4 or 5, fourth or fifth grade, not 4 or 5.
Oh, sorry.
I was just well, probably lifting items around the house at that age. But uh, the professional wrestling phase, or WWF at the time, uh, I liked the exercise aspect of seeing how many push-ups I could do and hitting it. So I was very goal-oriented at a young age. Was never good in school. Education was something that I knew was important because I always said I had to get good grades from my parents, and teachers expected something from students, in which I didn't get the best grades, learned along the way that I had multiple learned disabilities. So to me, the gym was something that I was good at, or working out was something that I was in competition with myself. So I didn't feel compared to someone else. It was kind of like a secret. Like, I didn't tell people that I was lifting weights. It was something I did because it made me feel good. It helped build my self-esteem, but wasn't something that I was doing socially, like at a gym.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people struggle with overcoming things like that. If you're, whether it's dyslexia, or sometimes people don't learn well just because they're bored, and maybe sometimes people can't, figure it out. So I know that's kind of a challenge and probably tough to hide sometimes. But so how did working out, because you eventually owned your own gym. I mean, how did that progress to go from working out to wind up owning your own gym?
So the progression went a little something like this. Got involved in theater and performing. Love to be on stage. Love to get a crowd to laugh. Um, Love to take on characters. Love to be funny, because what I couldn't do in school academically, I learned at an early age I could be entertaining. So by making other students laugh, or um, even the teachers to laugh, I felt that, okay, I'm good at this. So I would hide a lot of what I didn't know with humor, which eventually some teachers caught up to me or called my bluff. Uh, but that whole learning how to perform, or seeing myself as a performer, got me involved in school plays, community plays. And around the time of high school, when looking at where I wanted to pursue or what I wanted to pursue, many guidance counselors say there's a college for everyone. My guidance counselor said, typically there is, but for me, there weren't as many options because I wasn't working with a transcript that had grades that somewhat. When I took my SATs, I remember saying to my friend who asked, "How'd you do?" And when I gave him my score, he said, "What part?" And that's a good sign. I said, "No, that was combined." So it was a 640. I still remember I got a 640. So I had to retake them. No colleges were saying that's who we want to represent us. So didn't have many options, but found out that by going to a theater program, I would be auditioning. So they were taking into account not just your academic transcripts, but also how are you as an actor. So I portrayed a student with good grades at the auditions, got into a couple of schools, and the one I ended up going to for a theater program. From the time that I had accepted I actually was able to even get a scholarship for the theater program. So for my parents to hear that, I was so proud to say, guess what? Saving you some money with a scholarship. That in that time of accepting that scholarship, committing to the school I was going to, I competed in my first bodybuilding competition. and I won that. It was Mr. Teen Connecticut. So to win something at that age, in those formative years, at 18 years old, and say, wow, I'm not just good at making people laugh, but I'm good at whatever competitive bodybuilding is. And my friend at the time said, I think that fitness is a bigger thing to you than you realize. And I said, no, I've always wanted to be an actor. Fitness is something I do for fun. And sure enough, after a year of college, I ended up realizing I was interested in pursuing fitness. I went to a chiropractor because of an injury, and I've been told from multiple doctors that it was everything from calcium deposits in my elbow to different elbow traumas. And I was introduced to a chiropractor who was the third or fourth practitioner in the country doing something called active release therapy. This is back in 1997, so not many people were familiar with regular chiropractics, let alone myofascial release or any kind of techniques or modalities for dealing with issues, chronic issues, or so after I went to this chiropractor and he treated me, I had an elbow pain where I couldn't do any bench pressing or push-ups. He treated me one time and I was like 90% better after one treatment. And after that, I said, this is an area that I'm interested in pursuing, something in that wellness space. So I switched my major from theater to exercise science and pursued a whole new path. And once I got involved in that, for the first time ever, I started getting good grades because I was very interested in learning about the body. I'd only taken a personal trainer certification before. It used to be like a 4-hour course that you would do on a weekend. And what I knew was bro science in the gym. I didn't have any actual education or knowledge. So to be in a setting where I was learning about the human body with anatomy and physiology and kinesiology, it was so intriguing because I was interested in it, but it was stuff I had no idea because that's not what was in muscle magazines back then. It wasn't in science. So as I started to learn that, I started to do better in school. As I did better in school, my parents were proud that I was finally getting grades that looked like I was exerting some effort or had some kind of mastery of the topic. And once I graduated, I got into graduate school, which I never in a million years would have thought that would have happened. But I worked in, it was a cardiac rehab program. So my senior year, you had to do a certain number of hours in this phase 2 cardiac rehab. So it was individuals who had rehabbing from heart attacks or were taking medication because of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and they were incorporating this exercise program through the college for their wellness and improvement. And that was a point when I was deciding if I wanted to go into physical therapy, chiropractics, the gym business. And what was very surprising to me is how many people didn't take fitness seriously, even though they were facing these major challenges. And I realized I didn't want to work with a sick population just because you're limited to what you can do with those individuals. I had also at that time in college started working with the New York Islanders because they came to my college for their exercise testing. So to see NHL professional athletes and how they performed, my interest shifted from working with those who were sick to working with athletes who were performing at just such an incredible level that I'd never even seen before. So that kind of pulled me away and made me say, I want to open some kind of sports training facility or where we can work with athletes. So I then pursued opening a gym that was specifically around that area. It was in a large sports complex with batting cages and basketball. So I had the fitness center within, and it was working with those athletes at that time that I just said, now I'm loving life. That's when I was just like in a zone, working with athletes, improving their strength. And yeah, that was the first gym.
See, it's, to me, what you were all just described is really wonderful, because sometimes we get so stuck that this is what I need to do, or this is what I have to do, or I'm supposed to do, right? And you just keep going at it and going at it. But instead, as things came up, you pivoted and you adjusted, and you just keep tweaking to kind of find out what your niche was really going to be, instead of just saying, well, this is where I'm at, this is what and I haven't finished this yet. So I definitely admire you for doing that and pivoting. But with that practice, though, I mean, you had even more, because I know you have a different approach to it. Because I know I've worked with some people before about losing weight and stuff, and they always seem to make you want to do this, do that, and they don't seem to take in effect different things of the type the person's body type, or different things. I mean, there's so many factors really to take in. What was your approach with it?
So when I started working with the athletes, it was a wake-up call, because it was very humbling to be into competitive bodybuilding and then have professors who didn't give you the same respect that you would get in the gyms. So they would knock you off that pedestal where, to be the most muscular person in the gym, everyone would ask questions or assume you knew what you were talking about because you had the body to show for it. The professors in college or graduate school, they would call you out, and they would just, if you weren't book smart or you didn't have the knowledge for it, it was embarrassing, because they would call you out in front of everyone. So I took everything from that theater and performing background and always incorporated that to what I was doing, even in fitness. So whether it was leading an exercise class for in that cardiac rehab program, it was trying to be entertaining. It was putting on music that, from the Macarena to Who Let the Dogs Out, it was the late 90s. And to get them to do YMCA, to get them involved with making it fun. I always realize that nobody likes to do certain things, but if you can find a way to make it more entertaining or fun, then you're more likely to have someone stick to it and get over that hump of the beginning, which is most difficult for people to commit to anything. So when it came to fitness, my approach was always, how can I make it fun for the people I'm working with? How can I make it a challenge for people I'm working with? And it was little things, how I always did full body workouts when most people in the gym were just doing individual or two body parts of workout. I was incorporating cardiovascular or aerobic anaerobic work at the same time, instead of breaking it down to where you do your cardio and you do your weight training. I was finding ways how to make it fun, how to make it more like everyday life for regular people who didn't want to be athletes. So if someone told me that they were going to be a grandfather, a grandmother, I would use a medicine ball and I would use a weight that would be similar to an infant. And I would say lifting the infant up. And I would just have them do activities where I would, just like if it was acting, I would say, okay, and here's your grandson, and lift him up. And they would laugh with it. And one of the greatest compliments I ever got from someone was, I've tried exercising for years. I've never been able to stick to it. I enjoy our time together because it doesn't feel like exercise. It feels like hanging out with a friend. And that was like one of the most flattering things someone could say, because I saw everyone I was working with as friends, because I was genuinely interested in, what are you doing this for? And that's something that early on with exercise, I would always ask clients, so what brings you here today? Like in that initial consultation, I always ask people, what's the reason you're here? And it always was someone had something coming up, something important, a trip, a wedding, trip, vacation, same thing, an occasion, or I saw a picture of myself and I couldn't believe what I looked like. There was always something that was a driving factor. And what I found is, when it was something like having a grandchild or like a life event, they really committed to making those improvements because they had decided that they wanted to live for something, and chocolate chip cookies didn't take precedent over their grandchild. So they were going to be more consistent with the exercise. So I always just kind of ask people, what are you doing it for? Instead of just, let's focus on that specific, the scale, and obsess about weight. It was, what are you doing it for? And then we would put steps in place to reach that ultimate goal.
Yeah, you made it personal. And just hearing these stories, me personally, of course, because since I belong to MPN, I know how I can see now even more how these carry over into the network that you've built, and we will most definitely get there. But yeah, I love how that you when you make it personal, you make it fun. Everything's always better to do when it's fun, right? Who wants to be told you have to do this, you have to do that, and it's like, okay, I get to. It's also a mindset shift. If you can say I get to do something instead of I have to do it, you can, get into mindset with that and everything. I know you still work out regularly, correct?
Yeah. Of course, it's changed very much from.
It's changed, but I mean, you still work out, but you're not physically. You don't do physical training with people anymore.
Correct. I'm not training people anymore. So my clientele evolved from the time that when I had my first gym, I was focused on athletes. And that really was, at that time, I enjoyed it because I wanted to work with those high performance athletes who were doing things or operating at a level that a regular person couldn't. Except when you look at what's the likelihood of building an entire clientele around all those people. Plus, when working with professionals, it's very different because you're under contract. You've got to get clearance from the organization because these multi-million-dollar investments aren't just allowed to go to a gym and lift whatever amount of weight you're going to put onto a bar. So I would have to speak to someone from the strength department. And this is early 2000s when a lot of this was new to organizations where their athletic trainers who would do rehab for injuries were also doing the strength programs. This is before they were bringing strength teams in to work with their players. So there's a lot of limitations to what you could do with people. So I started working with regular, everyday people in a gym that I had a personal training company within another gym. And I had injured myself bench pressing and tore my pec muscle to where I was going to be in a sling for 6 weeks. Couldn't work out. Absolutely depressed the heck out of me because working out did so much for me, not just physically, but mentally, for setting those goals. And to not be able to work out my upper body, I tried working like my right arm and doing what I could like with lower body, but not the same. And even training clients, it was going to be difficult. So what I did is I dedicated my time to creating a program called the 8-week body transformation. And I looked for a male and female who I was going to volunteer to train for an 8-week program. And they were going to follow what I outlined for a meal plan. And they had to train with me 3 times a week. And I looked for volunteers by putting a sign up over my office in the men and women's room and at the front desk. And I probably like between 16 and 25 people volunteer that said that they would follow it. So I gave a discount to everyone besides the male and female who I chose. And over those 8 weeks, to see the transformation, and it's not like I was doing anything. It wasn't what I was doing. It's the commitment they were making. It was just giving them a framework to follow. Even the meal plan wasn't anything particular. It was lowering your carbohydrate intake from what you're doing, increasing your protein content, eliminating any sugary drinks or soda. And just by doing that, these people had incredible changes that really I was so impressed with. So every week they would check in, we would take their measurements, do their body fat, check their weight. And the agreement was I gave them a huge discount if I could post their pictures in my office window every week. And it was great for business because as people in the gym saw, wait a second, these results are possible. I'm watching people go through this right now. They started cheering on people who were my clients in the gym. So they would ask, oh, what are you down this week? Once I saw that interest, how people started rooting for others, I realized that there was something there. And that kind of led to my next chapter, which was then working with celebrities, because one of the people who was part of that program what became a buddy of mine, this guy named Gavin. And after he had lost a bunch of weight, toned up, he said, I'm curious if you also do in-home training. And I said, not typically. And he said, I wanted to see if I could hire you to come to my house. I said, how far do you live from here? From the gym we were at? He said, about 45 minutes. And I was like, oh, it's going to be difficult. And he said, oh, and I said, can your wife come here? He's like, no, she'd prefer that you come to our gym. People might ask for autograph and stuff. And I was like, excuse me? Why would they ask for autograph? He's like, people kind of know who she is. I'm like, who is she? He's like, you've heard of Salt and Pepper, right? I said, yeah. He's like, Cheryl, my wife is Cheryl. That's Salt. I was like, get out. All right, I'll come out to your house. So I started training Cheryl James. And that was awesome because I was a fan of Salt and Pepper. They were having their comeback when I was in high school. Those songs, I mean, I could rap those songs, which I did. I eventually did too, Cheryl.
You and me both.
Well, performing it for Cheryl and watching her reaction as I did the shoop dance. But that's where I tied in like the performance aspect. So Gavin asked, could I train Cheryl? Started training Cheryl. That's the time that they were filming, or about a year before. I worked with them for a period of time, and then they were doing their comeback. And they were doing a VH1 special. So I recorded there for their VH1 special, or VH1 series, as they were exploring different options with business and motherhood, and they're following their lives. But I got to be part of her life, her family's life at that point. So again, it went from athletes to then being introduced to people in the music industry, in which I then started working with a bunch of them. And again, it was somewhere I never in a million years, songs that I was singing in college, to be working with these people or quoting their movies and then working with them. Every chance I could, I recited a line from a movie that they had, or I would do my rendition of a song that they performed, and it always got a laugh or them rolling their eyes, but I got a response one way or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really incredible. And it really proves the fact that, you never know who you're going to come across, whether it's in life or in business, right? Or who they're connected to. And you never know what opportunities or doors are going to open next. So what made you eventually, what made you leave that world then and focus more on business and the systems and stuff that you have now?
So when I was working around that time with Gavin and Cheryl, I told you I had their pictures posted outside of my office window. There was a woman knocked on my glass door of the office one day and said, I see all these pictures and these people getting these incredible results. I said, yeah, they're all working really hard. Why are you interested in training? She said, who's doing their training? I said, oh, I'm doing it. These are all the clients I'm working with. It's for this special program. She said, do you also train at homes? And I said, no, typically I just work here. And I couldn't help but notice her jewelry. And she had a ring that was blinding me. It was just like she had a diamond ring like the size of my fist, and like as she was like pointing to the price sheet, I'm getting blinded by the sparkle. We start talking, And her name was Juanita Bynum. And she had a show at that time on BET and on Trinity Broadcasting, or TBN. And she told me how she has a ministry and leads. She was a best-selling author. She had the TV show that aired to 80 million people a week around the world, like insane. So I was just, when she told me who she was, these are like the early days of Google. I couldn't just run to the computer and look it up. So she told me, and I was like, oh, sounds good. She's like, I have a TV show, I have this. And she wasn't saying it bragging like all these things. I just said, why can't you get to the gym? And she's like, well, I travel a lot. I said, oh, I have a lot of clients that travel. Like everything I was saying, she was saying back. And then I think she just kind of like bullet pointed, well, I do this, 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 and this. I was like, okay, everyone can't say that. So I started working with her, and she got in on the program as well. So I then introduced her to Gavin and said, oh, this is Salt, Cheryl's husband. So they meet. Gavin and Cheryl were both Christian, and I brought them together. Cheryl ended up becoming a guest host on TBN for Juanita's show, Praise the Lord. So just my introduction of celebrity to celebrity for, let's call it, business opportunity, I saw how opportunities came about from connecting people. And something about that really resonated. Like, wow, that opportunity came about because of that introduction that I made. And so many of the opportunities that I had were because of an introduction someone else made. Mm-hmm. So that was like an early phase, or an early point when I had the realization that nobody achieves anything on their own. Every opportunity that you're going to get is going to come through someone. So those relationships are important. It's like, you've heard the expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I feel like it's one step further. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who you know that knows what you know. Because by me knowing what Cheryl and Juanita had in common with their faith and music and that celebrity, by bringing them together, it led to more opportunities for them and other things that they did from that point forward.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me to one of the reasons why I love myself, MP, and what you've built so much, because anyone that's been in a lot of different networking groups, for the speed networking, which is the thing now, it's more about building relationships. And I've always been more of a relationship person, because if you don't have that relationship, how are you going to know? It's too transactional the other way, you know, and we all work hard for our reputation, for our careers, for things we've put together. And, you know, you would like to be represented, you know, the right way, and not have that tarnished, or know people that you're going to, I never connect people for just the sake of connecting them. It's like you're talking about, right? You know things about that person, and you know that, hey, these guys will probably really hit it off. I should connect them.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have a genuine reason for bringing people together, that makes an introduction of substance. So I got into, or learned, that there was even a world of networking around like 20 years ago, 2006. I went to my first BNI meeting, and I had no idea what BNI was. It was suggested to me that I go check it out. And I walked into a room, and exactly like you said, someone hands me a business card and says, I'm so-and-so. What do you do for a living? And that was kind of like strange, how asking someone like right away, I know in conversation, you'll ask someone when you're getting to know them, oh, so what do you do? It's either like, what do you do? Or how about the weather? Like, people always go back to like those two questions. And I always thought the what do you do is not a rude question. I understand that it's around interest, but I think some people, it almost comes across like, how much do you make? Like, there's something in the way how people go about asking it. It doesn't feel like they're starting a conversation. It's almost, do I want to talk to you? Are you worth my time? And I never liked that aspect of those networking organizations. I did get involved. I built a large chapter with the group that I was involved in. I won an award for building a big chapter in a little amount of time. It was awesome, but I wanted to create something different. There's an expression that I heard when I was in college that stuck with me from that point until now. Have a vision or be part of someone else's. And when it came to creating that networking space or networking group, I started a group called Connects. And the idea was get to know the person ahead of their profession. So instead of identifying as what you do, it was getting to know someone because of something in common. So the way that our meetings worked, and this is in 2019, before we were fully virtual, it was having meetings where I created games. So I had the group was called Connects. It was Connects 5, play off the Connects 4. No trademark needed. It was Connects 5. And it was I had everyone fill out things about themselves, and then I arranged a board where everyone in the room, they had things about them, and you had to go around and talk to people and find out whose fun fact belonged to what individual and line up 5 people. So for the first hour of the event would be getting to know people so that you could fill out your scorecard. And I realized early that you need to make it about the individual that is on that scavenger hunt. Like the person with the piece of paper that said Connects 5 on it, they wanted to win. So their interest was to win. But in order to win, they had to get to know others. So they were motivated to get to know others so that they could win. But that early realization is the thing people like to talk about the most at networking events is themselves.
Right.
And I said, so instead of trying to go against that and tell people you're wrong, something I never quite understood with networking organizations is realizing when you have a room full of business owners, they don't work for someone for a reason. They don't like to follow rules or someone else's rules. They don't take directions well. They tell other people what to do. So it was respecting people enough to not tell them, here's what you have to do. Here's what the rules are. If you don't do this, you're in trouble. Like, instead of speaking down to people, it was realizing we respect you as a person, not just a professional, but as a person. And everyone should be given the same respect in the room. No matter what your profession is, everyone should be treated the same. So by eliminating I'm Chris and I'm a personal trainer, it was, I'm Chris. I'm married. I have 2 kids. So it was sharing about yourself, and that sparked more interest in others being like, what age are your kids? So then further conversations started from those connection points. And then everything shut down. We went virtual in 2020, and that's when Connects kind of evolved into a different kind of group. And then Connects evolved into MPN, or my personal network. And that shift was getting away from networking for the sole purpose of getting referrals, because after 2020, when everything went virtual, I believe a lot of quote unquote networking became cold calling. So it was person get in front of person A, try to sell the service to person B try to sell the service to A, and the conversations became more and more generic. So how can we help each other? Who are you looking to meet? Then it almost became like, I'll give you someone's information if you give me someone's information. And it wasn't about introductions. It was more like, can you give me a lead list and I'll give you a lead list. So upon realizing that, MPN shifted out of the networking space to building your network. And I define it as networking is like flirting. A network is like a relationship, because networking is Who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? Who do you know? And then you move on to someone else. And so often people with a business are so interested in meeting more and more and more people, but they never get to know anything about them. So they say that they know them, but it's like social media friends or followers. Like, you don't really know them. You might be connected on a platform, but you don't know them. You're not really friends, even though that's what the platform deems it or calls it. So the idea with NPN was, we are an accountability group, because the other thing that I realized as I would go to other networking or speed networking, you hear quotes of people say, you're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Your network is your net worth. I believe, my opinion, a lot of individuals think, if I hang around, if I work my way into a room, if I can get around these people, that will either convince them that I'm at their level, I'm as successful as them, I'm as accomplished as them. Instead of building your own, it's like trying to tap into others. And I realized that a lot of referrals were never passed on in that environment, because nobody believed that the individual who made the claims was the person that they said they are. It's one thing to say that you do all these things, but I said, imagine if you had to prove it. Because when I was working out and in the personal training world or the bodybuilding space, very often people would say, hey, how much do you bench? And at first, I would be honest. I would tell them the exact number of the highest I ever benched a handful of times, like 410, and I did it 3 times, like 2.25 times, and then my partner finished the rest. We'll call it 3, round up. And every time someone would ask me, I could say anything. So I started making it fun, where every time someone would ask me, I would raise the amount, and I would see what I could keep saying and which people would call my bluff or call me out on it. And it was like 400, next person, how much? 425, next person asked, 450. I got up to like 700 pounds. And someone's like, you bench 700. I'm like, yep. And they're like, come on. And nobody ever said, let's see.
Right.
And something about how nobody ever said, let's see, made my exaggeration go further and further. And I realized, if it happens in the gym space, I bet it happens in the professional space, where when people make the claims of their accomplishments or their business, you can't say, oh, let's see your P&L. Like, that's not going to fly. Someone's not going to show you. But with NPN, the idea that made it different than traditional networking is it's everyone adhering to creating daily disciplines for what they are going to follow. From 3 first hour of the day disciplines that you are going to do, from making your bed to drinking 20 ounces of water to writing down 5 things you're grateful for. And then choosing 1 physical exercise and 1 mental exercise. I'm going to walk 30 minutes. Mental, I'm going to listen to 20 minutes of motivational content. If people alongside you are doing these same things and checking them off a list, and everyone in the group is privy to a list that shows who completed everything they said they were going to and who didn't, it changed the dynamic of, first of all, it established credibility that the person who says that they're going to do something will do it. And in that process, not everyone is perfect all the time, but it starts to form relationships, because as members say, oh, which one are you having trouble with? Why don't I'm having trouble. I'm just forgetting to enter it. Why don't I text you a reminder? The friendships started developing by working on this together. Same if you've ever played on a sport, if you've ever been in a theatrical production, been in a band with someone. Whenever you're working on something with others, that's what strengthens the bond. The going through the challenges, the difficult times, that's what strengthens bonds and relationships. So
Kind of like
by
the people with the pictures, right? In the pictures in the gym, people were saying that, like you said, they started cheering them
yep,
on and saying, "Oh, hey, what are you down to now?" And because they were seeing the progress, and all of a sudden they had a whole accountability, a whole cheering section that they didn't even know they were going to have.
great observation. Yeah, and to see people all start becoming friends because they were struggling together. Same thing with NPN. So once people started doing the daily disciplines themselves, you'd start to see people's confidence go up. The same as when I started working out. When I got into working out joined my first gym at 14. Once I got my license at 16, I would go to the gym every morning before school. And I loved early morning workouts. There was something about being up when I knew everyone else in high school was still sleeping. It made me feel like empowered. Like I'm dedicating myself to do this early where most are getting extra hours sleep. I'm getting my workout in. And because I didn't want to risk seeing someone who I knew, because it was kind of like my own personal, my own, it helped me build confidence where I didn't want to risk being teased or someone seeing it and making fun of it. So I went to a gym that was 20, 25 minutes away from where I lived. So I would get up at 4:30 in the morning. I would drive a half hour away, and a friend of mine who one morning in biology, I yawned. This is sophomore year. I yawned, and the person sitting next to me said, "Late night?" And I was like, "No, early morning." And he was like, "Oh, couldn't sleep?" And this is just like, I'd never talked to the person. It was maybe creepy, but we end up just having a conversation. I said, "No, I go to the gym before school." And he was a heavier set guy. And he said, "Oh, wow, you go to the gym before school?" I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Wow, I've wanted to go to the gym. I need to lose weight for football." Like he said, for football. He did play football, but I think he wanted to lose weight. But he took a second, and maybe he thought I was going to make fun of him. I don't know. But he said, "Could I go with you?" And I said, "You're going to get up at 4:30 to go." And he's like, "Absolutely." Now, that person next to me, we hadn't spoke before, but I knew he had better grades than me, because when we would get tests back, he would always have an A and I would always have a D, or maybe a C, depending on who I was sitting next to. Maybe I could get a C. And this guy's name, Jason, he asked if he could come to the gym with me. And I said, "Could you help me with biology?" And he said, "You mean like tutor you?" I was like, "No, I was thinking more like let me copy off you." And he was like, "Sure." So early on, I learned, some would call it networking. It was kind of like bartering. Like, I'll take you to the gym and show you what to do to work out. You get me to pass. And one hand washing the other, both washing the face. So he consistently went every day for half of sophomore year, junior year, senior year. He and I worked out every day before school. And that kind of just like something about getting up early, meeting a friend, going to the gym together. We would get showered, dressed, and then stop and get breakfast on the way back. So we would stop somewhere, grab something that was a healthier option, or make a protein shake in a shaker bottle in the car, and then go to school together. And again, it was supporting each other. He became my best friend. Like, we became so close because we were challenging ourselves together. So whether it was him losing weight, me getting into bodybuilding, he was like my biggest fan, biggest supporter, because he was right there in the gym with me. So it was like we were doing it together. When I won my first trophy, I said I couldn't have done it without you. And I truly meant that, because it was that friendship that we built, each having our own goals, but doing them alongside each other. And that kind of set the foundation for how I saw building relationships as a business owner. Because for all those who are solopreneurs, if you are in insurance and you have a book of business, you might not be going to an office every day. Maybe you're a financial advisor and you work from your home, or you have a shared office space. I realize that so many professionals out there are struggling or aren't connected to an office or that social circle, and it can be lonely. And your spouse doesn't want you to come home and complain to them about losing another client or not getting another deal. So by creating a space, and I call it a culture, not a community. And the reason is a culture has a standard that must be met to be part of, versus a community that says we accept and take you and love you the way that you are. We still love you the way that you are, but the idea is there's an expectation. Nothing in life is free. And by putting in effort, how you do something is how you do everything. And the idea of building credibility is, if you're someone in the social media space and you do SEO and social media, how can I trust or count on you or believe that you're going to remember to set my social media posts every day if you can't check off a list that you've completed certain actions every day? Like, if that's so difficult for you, why should I trust you for my business? So the motto behind NPN is build yourself, build your business, build your network. Because if you build yourself with our daily actions and our weekly steps, then you're going to build your business. But by doing that alongside of the professionals, that's what builds your network. So you're doing all at the same time.
Absolutely. And this is why we're going to have two parts. And like I said, this is all success starts within, because it all starts with you. Kind of like when you were saying about the people, yes, you want to be around people that you aspire to be and be in the room. But just because you're in the room doesn't put you there unless you start building from within, which is one of the things that MPN truly helps you to do. And we still have a lot more to dig into, but we are almost out of time. And, the reason we wanted to do this is because you had so many valuable, and you still have so many valuable lessons, and they've all accumulated to building MPN. They've all been a part of it. See, you were talking about your friend with the gym and working out and having that trade. I call it collaboration nowadays, right? Not everything has to be transactional and money, but if you need help and support in one area and someone help you, then you can collaborate and you can build and grow. So I really look forward to continuing this conversation with you, because I know you have so much more to share. Because as you said, there are a lot of people struggling. They're feeling stuck, trying to fill that leadership role, feeling inadequate. There are so many things to address, but I definitely want to, thank you for filling us in. Do you want to give them a little tidbit of what part two will bring for them before we leave today?
We'll go into some more detail about what everyone can do on their own to kind of create those daily disciplines that, by setting these positive daily habits, there's so many negative habits that we're constantly trying to cut out of our lives, but we can also replace those with positive habits, which is the best way. And if you're doing something to better yourself, you're overall going to be in a much better mood, more positive. People are going to want to be around you.
Oh, absolutely. And so we also have lots of stories to share about that, but lots of things of the process. So stay tuned for part two. I hope everybody has a wonderful Monday. Chris, thank you for joining us and sharing all that with us, and have a great rest of your week. And we will catch everybody next time.
Thank you.